Thank you. All right, those are all the slips of paper. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Becerra, you're right. I used your application for a note rather than. My apologies. My apologies. Just too many blue.
That's what happened yesterday too, Ryan. He was making.
Yeah, Ryan Becerra for a number of upstream agencies. I clearly need to manage my blue cards much better than I am. I promise to improve my reliance on blue cards dramatically. I want to second the comments of Ms. Kelm, Mr. Elodjum, and I don't know what my clients are going to think of this, but Mr. Bobker on the point about applying the reduced reliance, applying this third paragraph upstream. It remains very difficult to see how that applies upstream. And I'll give you a concrete example. There are a number of agencies that are next to Folsom Reservoir and divert from Folsom Reservoir. That's what they've got. They've got an intake in Folsom Reservoir. They don't have another option. Or, well, at one time there was discussion of another option, which was to put in an intake in the Sacramento River near the airport and build a very long pipeline to Placer County. So you can't reduce the reliance. So it's difficult it's always been difficult for me to understand how this standard could apply. And so this policy doesn't apply directly to upstream agencies. I'll be interested to see how it redounds through some of the recommendations, which we'll have to take a look at. But so it's difficult to apply, and I've had this conversation with Ms. Davis a number of times, and she's explained her vision of it, and I think I understand what Martha means, and it makes some sense. It's still hard to get into reduced reliance, but what I'd suggest is if you go forward with the third paragraph, you have a nice collection of success stories on page 94 of the plan. And I'd suggest that in order to help people understand this reduced reliance, if you continue forward with it, you add the following sentence. The regional success stories described on page 94 are consistent with the Delta Plan. That would help. And then on a couple of those...
Not bad.
On a couple of those... on item number 2, I want to second the comments about all feasible. Feasible is a word that can mean different things, and if you say you need to commence implementation of all feasible, that sounds like an awful lot of money that ratepayers are going to have to put out to comply with this. When you would, good water management would be you would stage things. You'd have a list of projects and you'd stage them.
Ryan, let me interrupt you if you don't mind. Sure. We tried to draw from SB 7X7 the language that the statute includes about crafting water management plans and what actions should be implemented, and they refer to that as those that are feasible or locally feasible or something like that. If we haven't captured the exact language of the statute, that was our intent in that.
Okay. We'll take a look.
Okay.
I'm trying to wrap my mind around everything that's in SB 7 and trying to remember what piece of that there is. But to me, it's the all piece that gets troublesome. And then finally, on the third paragraph, it starts with the evaluations of feasible options. The way that'll be read, I think, is it will tie into paragraph 2. And paragraph 2 says identify, evaluate, and commence. If you say evaluate at the beginning of the last paragraph, it will tie into evaluate in the second. What I'd suggest is you just delete the evaluations of, and just start with feasible options. Because I think your intent is that the feasible options you're saying feasible options for all purposes. So those would be my comments. Again, because this policy doesn't apply upstream, I'll have to see how it goes through the recommendations. But I think the fundamental thing is that reduced reliance standard remains difficult for the reasons Mr. Johnson described yesterday. How do you reduce reliance when the only water you've got is, over the levee? Thank you.
Thank you.